just went through the results of UFC's ESPN taping in Rio Rancho, New Mexico tonight. And the main name I recognized from the card was Diego Sanchez, who won over Michael Perez via DQ because Perez gave him an illegal knee. Corey Anderson lost to Jan Blatche, which I know I'm probably pronouncing wrong, in a light heavyweight fight. He was knocked out at 3:08, and it seemed like a pretty spectacular knockout. John Jones was in the crowd, and this Jan challenged John Jones after. Jones stood up on his chair as if to say, bring it on. So obviously they're going to try and build for that fight. To me, obviously any John Jones fight is going to have interest, but I watched Jan's post-fight promo, and he doesn't speak English very well. He's not really that known yet, so I don't know how much of a huge payday that fight would be for Jones. He was talking before about maybe getting into wrestling where you could make really huge money. But then on the other hand, Cain Velasquez also went into wrestling, and I think he's getting some injuries taken care of now, but he hasn't done too well so far in the WWE. Just a quick loss to Brock Lesnar. The other match that was of interest was Ray Borg, who missed his weight by 2 pounds in the flyweight division, won his fight against Rogero Bontorin. So Ray Borg said the weight just wasn't coming off. So you can read the full results or get them from the UFC. There was no other fighters I really recognized, so I didn't go much further past that. In wrestling news, AEW Double or Nothing in Vegas this year has about 6,000 tickets sold, according to the Wrestling Observer. It's not like last year where it was an instant sellout and everyone was jumping on the AEW bandwagon. Their Dynamite tapings in Philadelphia and Boston were also not instant sellouts, and no word on how many tickets have been sold for those. I'm sure they are going to all have great crowds, but it's just that the interest does not seem to be as strong as it was now that they've been on TV for a while. They did get a good TV rating for their first rating, which was 0.7, the same rating that SmackDown got this week with Hulk Hogan's return, but their ratings have been under 1 million viewers for the most part, for people watching it live. NXT ratings were also good to start on USA, but they've been nothing spectacular either. I believe, don't quote me on this, but the ratings weren't great this week for either AEW or NXT. Now, compare it for the people comparing AEW to TNA. They pointed this out in the Wrestling Observer Radio. TNA's best ever pay-per-view buy was 50,000 for the Samoa Joe versus Kurt Angle match years ago. This, I believe, I'm trying to think back. I think that would have been around 2007, because I remember I drove Samoa Joe from Calgary to Edmonton not too long after that pay-per-view match. And I remember AJ Styles was also in that car with me. And I remember Samoa Joe was complaining that TNA does not give a percentage of pay-per-view buys at the time like WWE did. And by the way, I was also partners at one time with Samoa Joe for a match that we were victorious in over. Jinder Mahal was one of the people we beat that night. Now, as far as TV ratings, TNA's best rating number ever was actually in the Vince Russo era on Spike TV. They scored a 1.2. So AEW still hasn't hit close to what TNA did in the ratings. So that is interesting There's also no word on if there's going to be a star cast yet or not, a double or nothing. Those are run by Conrad Thompson, who likes to spend. Well, I listen to various podcasts that he does, but he definitely spends a lot of time talking about um, the Blue Chew Viagra like substance as well as Manscaped. There's a lot of dick talk on his podcast that you have to put up with if you want to hear the stories from Bischoff, Jim Ross, and who's the other one I listen to? Arn Anderson. I stopped listening to Bruce Pritchard after a while. He started to get boring. But I do find it funny that a guy of Conrad Thompson's size, as heavy as he is, he looks like he's massive, like extremely obese. Not obese, but, well, yeah, he's obese. You can definitely call him obese from the pictures I've seen. And he's always talking about like manscaping and like how to last longer in bed. Does that really matter if you weigh 400 pounds? To be perfectly honest, that's not things that guys that are getting a lot of pussy are worried about, to be perfectly honest. And I've worked in the bar industry and been in the wrestling industry many years. The guys that get the most pussy don't give a damn how long they last with the girl, as long as they get to finish themselves off, because they never see the girls again most of the time. So I find that funny. But Will Ospreay, I'm just going to say this. Apparently, he won the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship over the weekend here, and he's very happy about being the new British champion. But it is my understanding from a conversation I had with the Taskmaster, Kevin Sullivan, not too long ago, that the Blood Hunter, who is a top Great North Wrestling and PCW Ultra star, might actually be heading over to the UK later this year. And I am very, very sorry for this little midget, Will Ospreay. But a guy like the Blood Hunter could beat you with one hand tied behind his back. A couple questions here. Sita Lowell says Dana White is a crook. I did do another news update yesterday that talked about that UFC only pays their fighters about 16% of their total revenue, which is far less than a lot of the other major leagues. And there's a huge, that 16% includes the big pay for guys like McGregor and the low pay 10 or 20,000 for the guys just starting in the UFC. So unless you're a big star there, you're getting your face beat up and your brains beat in for very little money. So, yeah. MC says, who I got? Tyson Fury. I would say Tyson Fury, yes, in that upcoming boxing match. I recently watched a documentary on Tyson Fury, but because he has the wrestling connection, I have to pick him over Wilder. He also has phenomenal reach. He's very gifted, definitely. I saw his last fight because, surprise, surprise, I was out somewhere with one of my buddies and the fight happened to be playing, and I didn't actually know who he was when I saw that fight, but I know who he is now. And he's a far better fighter than he is a wrestler, by the way. I'll just read a couple more. Oh, yeah. Jeff Weiss says Conrad Thompson is morbidly obese. And here's one other thing I find a little weird, okay? Some of you guys may agree with me. Some people not. Keep in mind it's 3:08 a.m. here. But Conrad Thompson married Ric Flair's daughter. And Conrad Thompson is like a huge, huge Ric Flair fan, has bought his robes. Massive Ric Flair mark, started the podcast with Flair. So do any of you find that a little disturbing that like he's such a fan of the guy that he married the daughter because that's as close as he's going to get to having sex with the man himself. I don't know. It's funny stuff, but he is successful. So nothing against him for that. The only thing I ever hold against him is when he's used quotes of mine in his podcast for my shoot interviews and not credited me. I find that low when Steve Austin numerous times has credited me on his podcast. And Steve Austin is about his biggest star that you can get in wrestling. And I hope that Steve Austin does come back for another match. I saw him deliver a stunner last summer. He's in better shape than, like, you could say almost all the roster in WWE, and he still has that star appeal. And he did also say that next time I'm in LA, which is going to be actually later next month, to contact him when it gets closer. He might have me on his podcast. He told me that not too long ago, so I will check in with him closer to that time. Valkyrie's SS says WWE is for virgin nerds. Last thing I'll bring up, actually, this is something valid for people that keep saying that WWE is still PG. They're doing a gimmick now with a vampire girl using fake blood, where there's blood and a girl biting people. So yes, that is a childish gimmick in some ways, because, like, it's not real blood, it's fake. But they weren't using any blood at all, fake or real, for the longest time, and this seems like it's going to be a regular part of their gimmick. Plus, you look at the lesbians stuff and the Lashley Rusev angle, plus that whole angle, it was very controversial. And in pay-per-views, they're allowing people that get busted open by accident to continue bleeding. So I do not believe they are still PG. They might not be making an announcement like Vince McMahon did when they went to the Attitude Era, and he made his famous speech that actually transitioned them into the Attitude Era, but they are not PG. Anyone that still watches it with the way that the current product is, religiously, I don't know how you could even watch that much product and not be a geek, because you must have no life to sit through the 9 hours or so of wrestling on TV every week. I remember when it was like 2 hours, 4 hours, like, that was perfect. Now you have to be a complete geek, as this person said, if you're going to watch all the products. And a lot of this stuff is really, really lame, like still using the 66-year-old Hulk Hogan trying to do angles with this guy, when back in the late 90s they were calling him old. Give me a break with all of the stuff that he's said and all that crap. I understand a lot of people like him, but ratings actually went down this week when they used him. Goldberg is another story. He's still in top shape. I got no issues with them using Goldberg. Enzo says 3 hours is too much for Raw. Yeah, it is. 2 hours was good, but now they got SmackDown, they got NXT, main event or whatever that show is. It's on when I'm in the gym sometimes. Plus, you got to watch AEW now. Who has time for any of the other leagues? Really, in all honesty. Anyways, have a good night, everyone. I had a lot of questions about the Billy Jack Haynes incident. I posted a video yesterday night giving the whole shoot version of that. And you know what? Since I keep getting these questions and I love all these fans, in the next few days, I will release one about the infamous heat between Lanny Poffo and I, giving you guys the whole truth on everything that transpired with our incident. Have a good night, everybody.